Hey guys, hope everybody's having a great morning. If you live in New York or the Northeast, the snow stopped, so now we just get to appreciate the beautiful snow. I want to tell you a quick story that I read last night that I thought about you guys because of the lesson that we're doing right now in Likutey Halachot, that we're speaking about the concept of a true tzaddik, a tzaddik emet, and how the ikr, the essence of this person, is not just his own spiritual level, which he reaches, which is very high, but along with him reaching that very high spiritual level, his whole desire in life is to give that over to those people who are suffering the most. Now, this goes in contradistinction to let's say the traditional way of looking at tzaddikim, that so to speak they would go exclude or they would isolate themselves from the public in order to continue to reach higher and higher levels. Like we're learning that the reason is not selfish, but is actually they're trying to emulate Hashem and how he hid away the light from the world so that it wouldn't be misappropriated and then it would be used in a way that would not be good for them. However, we're learning that in truth, a higher level, according to Rav Natan, according to Rabbi Nachman, is not to exclude yourself and to hide away as you're trying to build to higher levels of spirituality, but that actually what you do is you take that light in which that Hashem has given you and you take extra effort, concern, vigilance, and trying to be able to take the light which you have gotten and then packaging it and clothing it, constricting it so that those people who are furthest away are able to receive from it. The Baal Shem Tov, who was Rabbi Nachman's great-grandfather, who was for sure his biggest influence, Rabbi Nachman grew up in the home that the Baal Shem Tov became very famous and developed thousands and thousands and thousands of followers while he was still in Eastern Europe in a city called Mezhibush. Now, interestingly, we think, okay, thousands of followers, that random kid who lives in his grandma's basement, he has 1,000 followers on his YouTube account. But for the majority of history, it was not so easy, so to speak, to develop a following. And for a person in his lifetime who didn't live so long and who only, so to speak, revealed himself to the public when he was 36 years old, to develop within 20 years tens of thousands of living followers, students, is actually something unbelievable. Especially in the climate, the historical climate, and the spiritual climate which he was a part of. Now we know that when Rabbi Nachman was a child, he used to have students of the Baal Shem Tov come over all the time because he was born just after the Baal Shem Tov had passed away, not long after. And he used to have students of the Baal Shem Tov would constantly come to his home to speak about the Baal Shem Tov. And this greatly inspired Rabbi Nachman to the extent that this was his inspiration, his motivation to become the greatest tzaddik that he could. And even though it meant, let's say, not engaging in normal childlike activities like playing and going out with their friends, instead he would go out to the field and do hibodedut. Did you ever heard of that, Sheila? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And he would talk to Hashem for hours at a time, and he would pretend like he wasn't well. So all of his teachers thought he was just a troubled child. And in fact, he would just be going out and speaking to Hashem for hours and learning Torah. Okay. So now what was one thing that Rabbi Nachman internalized the most from his great-grandfather? That was this concept of chutzah, that I'm not going to take these spiritual levels that I achieve on my own and save them for myself, but in fact, I'm going to use everything in my power and my might and my soul to be able to give it out to those people who are struggling the most.
Unmute yourself.
No, I can't mute myself because I'm teaching. Okay, so I want to tell you a quick story that towards the end of the Baal Shem Tov's life. Now, very interestingly, there's a pasuk in Shlomo Melech. He says that Hashem created one opposite the other. And in the Midrashim and in Kabbalah, it's explained, what does it mean? It means that for everything that Hashem created that's good in the world, he created something that looks just like it, but it literally does the opposite thing. Now, just to make this less mystified and to make it more concrete, what does that mean practically? It means that Hashem created one thing for the good, one thing for the opposite. For the good means revelation of Hashem in the world, because Hashem is good. Like it says, taste and see that Hashem is good, meaning that he's the only good. So anything which reveals him in the world is called tov. Anything which conceals him in the world is called ra, it's called bad, or in the language of the Torah, it's called evil. Yeah? But what does it really mean? It means concealment of Hashem in the world. So therefore, everything in the world has something and its counterpart. Like it said about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest revealer of Hashem's light. So he must have a counterpart, and he did. His name was Bilam. Bilam, it's taught, the Arizal teaches, that he was da'at de sitra achra. He had that same level of consciousness, so to speak, but he used it in order to conceal Hashem from the world. Whereas Moshe Rabbeinu used that very high level of God consciousness to reveal him in the world. So we're learning here that so too, the Baal Shem Tov, so to speak, had his person who was connected him. And at the time that he was living, his name was Jacob Frank. So just a little bit of a historical background here. One of the reasons why the Baal Shem Tov, at least externally or superficially, developed such opposition in his lifetime is because he was born and he gained fame in the time which was right after the passing of who was called the false Mashiach, the false Messiah. His name was Shabbatai Tzvi. He was a Jew who grew up in Turkey.
In Turkey?
Yeah. Under a Muslim regime where Islam was the dominant power at that time. And the Jews were subjugated to tremendous oppression and to violence and to hatred. And the suffering was so intense that the people were literally just waiting for Mashiach, that it can't get worse than this. And along came a very charismatic, very brilliant figure who claimed to be a healer of people and used different aspects of Kabbalah in order to rectify and to elevate and to help those who are sick. And due to his charismatic nature and other aspects of him, he ended up, like the Baal Shem Tov before him, developing a tremendous following. However, as opposed to the Baal Shem Tov, this person, Shabbatai Tzvi, actually told people he was the Mashiach. Okay? Now, for those people, as you can imagine, when you're suffering so much in your life and you're looking for help from anywhere, all of a sudden when someone says that they can, that becomes even more intense for you. So you can't speak if you're going to be over here, okay, buddy? You can only watch and smile. Smile. Okay. So he told people that he was the Mashiach himself, and they believed him. And he started to develop a tremendous amount of followers to the extent that the majority of Jewish people literally thought he was the Mashiach. Now, unfortunately, what ends up happening with something like this, that Rabbi Nachman himself said that the one thing to be very concerned about is false leaders. So the Muslim government actually told him, when they saw how much, so to speak, steam he was generating, and they were concerned about him and his followers, that he was going to create some type of uprising. So the Sultan said that he needed to convert to Islam or they would kill him. Now, his followers at that time actually thought that, so to speak, this was going to be the moment in which he revealed himself to the world, that he was the Mashiach. And he did the opposite. He converted to Islam. And he lived the rest of his life as a Muslim. Now, obviously, for those of his followers, specifically his biggest follower, his name was Jacob Frank. So this was a big hit. And for those people who, so to speak, they were connecting only because of the hope in which he was giving to everybody, which was the majority of his followers, so they were crushed. And they actually went into complete yayush. They went into complete despair. This had a tremendous amount of korban, destruction, amongst the Jewish people that resulted from this. And it took a long time for everybody to recover. Now, interestingly, even though you would think that Jacob Frank, his biggest follower, his biggest chassid, would then, so to speak, let the movement go, he actually claimed that this was all a part of his mission. That this time that he said that he was converting to Islam, it was actually part of his mission to bring the Geula, and he was just pretending. And therefore, he still had a lot of followers who were with him. And even after he passed away, that there was still a movement of Shabbatians. They were his followers, and they followed Jacob Frank, and ultimately became called Frankists. Okay, they sound like Frankensteins, but they were actually very, very intense students of Jacob Frank. And one of the things which Jacob Frank advocated for, the Shabbatai Tzvi hinted towards, that is the fact that the oral Torah is not real, that only the written Torah is real and the oral Torah is not. So Jacob Frank was actually born in a city only a few minutes from the Baal Shem Tov. So to this extent, so to speak, you could see the living reality of this pasuk, that Hashem created one opposite the other. That we know that the Baal Shem Tov came to fame at the same time as Jacob Frank was continuing this movement. And what was the Vilna Gaon's concern? And what was the Litvish world concern? The traditional Jewish world's concern? That at the heels of Shabbatai Tzvi, you had another person who's charismatic, who others are claiming that he's healing them through different mystical means, who's creating a gigantic following of people, and he's specifically connecting to those people who are suffering the most and who are on the outskirts of society. So as a result, the Vilna Gaon was very concerned about this, and this was one of the main reasons in which he developed such opposition in his lifetime, because he was coming on the heels of this. However, we know that the Baal Shem Tov himself was very much against Jacob Frank and Shabbatai Tzvi. And in fact, when Jacob Frank came to the bishop, the Christian bishop of Ukraine, and he advocated that they should take all of the Gemaras, they should collect all of the Gemaras that they can find, they should put them in one big pile, and they should burn them all on fire in front of the entire city. So this was Jacob Frank, who was the Jewish person who was a follower of Shabbatai Tzvi. This was his suggestion to the archbishop. Part of that was to gain favor with him so that they would be able to have more influence. And obviously part of it as well was to be able to gain a following even amongst the non-Jews. Now, as a result of this, when the Baal Shem Tov student heard about this, he came to the Baal Shem Tov and told him about what was going on. So he asked him, how could it be that there's a decree from Shemayim that all of the oral Torahs are going to be burned? So the Baal Shem Tov responded to him and told him that the only way that this could happen is because of the people in this generation are not learning L'Shem Shemayim, but instead they're actually learning for their own honor. And because the majority of people are learning for their own honor, Hashem is allowing the Gemaras, the oral Torah, to be burned. So his student started to cry hysterically. And he told him that because of his tears and because of his fire and because of his desiring so much to save the oral Torah, that it was decreed above that the decree was ripped up. However, down here, it was still taking place. Now, ultimately, when the archbishop was going to light up the books, the Baal Shem Tov actually told one of his students to tell him that if he does so, that he would die a very sudden death. And he didn't believe him. And actually, as he started burning the books in front of the whole city, he actually started to die immediately. And he was in tremendous pain and he started screaming. Those people who were part of his dominion of the archbishop, they all thought he was actually developing some type of mental illness and losing his mind. And he said that the books were burning him. He ended up dying. And after that, they had a debate where Jacob Frank suggested that there would be a debate between the Frankists, those of his students, and that of the Jewish people, to choose a few rabbis. And then if they would lose, there would be repercussions for the Jewish people. Now, because the non-Jews, those are part of the Christian kingdom of Ukraine, were so to speak, shaken up by the whole incident with the books being burned and the archbishop dying right next to the books. So they were kind of nervous about what was going on with the Jewish people at this point. and they did not want to do something like this. However, they ended up being suggested and encouraged to anyway, and they had a debate. And interestingly, despite the fact that the Baal Shem Tov had so much opposition from Jewish people, they thought that actually he would be like their only hope in being able to overcome Jacob Frank in this debate, because the Baal Shem Tov himself, so to speak, had this larger than life, charismatic, very, very incredible way of connecting to others and showing them the truth. So they encouraged him to be a part of the debate. So you had the Baal Shem Tov and two other people who were minagid against the Baal Shem Tov, who were debating for the Jewish people. And then you had, I guess, three Frankists. And they did the public debate. And surprisingly, the Christians, because they were so shaken up by the whole event that had just taken place, they said that the Jewish people had won the debate, that the Baal Shem Tov and these two other rabbis had won the debate. And afterwards, they denounced all the Frankists and said that not only were they not Jewish, they were also not Christian either. So they had no place. And actually 1,000 Frankists on the spot converted to Christianity right after that. So this is a very fascinating story. But what ended up happening is the Baal Shem Tov began to cry hysterically for those people. And those around him, now that the debate was over, and so to speak, the threat of the Christians doing something to the Jews was gone. So the opposition again increased against the Baal Shem Tov, despite the fact that he helped them win this debate. And one of the reasons that they were saying that they were increasing their opposition was because of his response to all of Jacob Frank and his followers converting to Christianity. And he said that as long as the Jewish people, even if they're very sick, even if they're very ill, even if they're very far from truth, no matter what they're doing, as long as they're still a part of Klal Yisrael, then they can be saved. And he compared it to a human body, that you have, so to speak, a limb on the body, that the limb is not functioning properly. But as long as it's still part of the body, there could be some type of healing, there could be some type of recovery that would happen to that limb. No matter how sick it was, no matter how ill it was, no matter how dysfunctional it was. However, once you have a removal of that limb from the body, there is no way to fix that limb. So this was his response to why he was crying so much over all of Frank and his Jewish students converting to Christianity. And they said, how could you be upset about the fact that these people who are anti-Torah, who are anti-everything that Judaism stands for, who are anti-good, that they should convert? It's a cause for celebration. And they came to the Baal Shem Tov students and they said to him, look, see your master, how misguided he is, that he's crying over the loss of these people who are mamash rashayim, who are horrifying people, who are the cause of suffering for the Jewish people, and he's crying over them. So they responded to them, something that the Baal Shem Tov had taught them, and that was that when you have little tzaddikim or lesser tzaddikim, he said that they have love only for Jews who only make errors a little bit. That they are little sinners. That was their phrase, little Rishayim. However, he said that when you have big tzaddikim, so then they have love for even big sinners, or big let's say, opposition to the Jewish people in every way. And the Baal Shem Tov himself said that when the Mashiach comes, he is going to find a way to advocate for every single Jewish person, no matter what he's doing. Why? Because he will have been the greatest tzaddik who ever lived. So to speak, the template or the litmus test for what makes a greater tzaddik is to which degree he can advocate for those people who are far from Hashem. Okay, now this connects very, very well with what we're learning right now about the difference between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, that we're learning that we paskin, we go according to halacha, according to Beit Hillel, because of the fact that he advocated for the Jewish people, and therefore he had a greater ability to bring those who are far closer. Now, we're saying here that Yosef a tzaddik, what made him Yosef is the fact that he was busy trying to bring back Jewish people. Yosef comes from the word to increase. What was he trying to increase? The light, as opposed to his brothers who were all tzaddikim, but they were concealing the light like Beit Shammai because they didn't want that it should get into the wrong hands. Yosef was increasing the light, and therefore those around him saw him as a threat to the Jewish mission, just as every great tzaddik who ever lived, so to speak, had done the same thing. And we see the same thing by the Baal Shem Tov, and we ultimately see the same thing by Rabbi Nachman, that there was a greater increase in light by them, and a greater opposition by those around them because of fear of what this would do for the Jewish people. However, the reason is because they were embodying the spirit of Yosef HaTzadik, that in fact, that this was the greatest sign of his level of spirituality, that he had reached the level of Tzaddik Yesod Olam, of the complete Tzaddik of the generation. And therefore you would embody Yosef, that is to increase the light, despite the brothers wanting to hide it. Why? Because he had greater empathy for those people who were further. Whereas those people who were at a lesser spiritual level than this complete tzaddik, they could not empathize with those people who were struggling, who were so far, who seemingly were doing this of their own choice. However, the whole essence of the tzaddik emet is he reaches the highest level of da'at. He reaches the highest level of consciousness. And Rabbi Nachman teaches in Likutey Halachot that empathy is a direct cause of knowledge. That to the degree in which you can know truth, to that degree you can be empathetic towards those who don't. And so too in our personal lives. Let's say, for instance, we struggle with those around us and we get angry. Why are we getting angry? Because we're not empathetic to that person. We don't understand them. We feel that they're doing the wrong thing. Now, what's the secret of the reason that we can't empathize with them? Is because we don't understand them. Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach that if you gain an understanding, you're automatically going to gain an empathy. And we know that the Mashiach himself, so to speak, is going to be the greatest tzaddik who ever lived. And in that sense, he will have to have the greatest understanding of those around him. And in this way, he will develop the most tremendous empathy. And this is the raya, this is the proof to the Baal Shem Tov saying that the Mashiach himself, so to speak, will be the greatest advocate for the Jewish people who ever lived. And not just those people who, so to speak, are sitting in yeshiva, steiging away, but even those people who are opposing those who are learning in school, who are learning Torah, who are trying to, so to speak, do the mitzvot of Hashem. That there's going to be a figure who rises to the scene, who advocates even for those people who are completely against everything which the Torah stands for. And his ability to do so is actually built into his understanding of where those people are coming from. And in this way, he can empathize with them. And this is the ikr of the tzaddik. So this is how Yosef is similar to Yaakov. And that's why it said that whatever happened to Yosef, also it happened to Yaakov, and this is what Yaakov gave over to him from Shem and Aver. So this is where we ended yesterday. And all of this is juxtaposed with this pasuk that he sojourned in his father's city. That it would be Yaakov that he would bring in gerim, that he would bring in converts, that he would bring in those who were far. And then right after this is the pasuk Ele Todot Yaakov Yosef. So on paper, there's no connection between the fact that Yaakov Yeshev, that he was settling in those places that his father had brought back those who are far. But now we're learning from Rav Natan that there's a direct correlation between that situation that the Torah is setting us up for and the fact that the children of Yaakov are Yosef, meaning that this was the embodiment of his father, that just as his father was trying to bring back those who were furthest, just like he learned from his father Yitzchak, so too, who was Yaakov's main son, the one who embodied him the most? It was Yosef, because Joseph ended up taking on this avoda the most as well. And that was his wisdom, because the greatest wisdom is not to learn Torah for yourself. The greatest wisdom is to be able to learn the highest level of Torah and be able to explain it to people who are furthest. This is the most difficult thing to do. Hainu meaning, meaning that Yaakov was able to bring those back who were furthest, meaning to quote unquote convert those who were not converted and to bring them through the strength of his wisdom, that he knew how to make contractions to be able to heal those who were most sick. Kamo ken haya Yosef HaTzadik, so too Yosef HaTzadik osek bazeh tamid. He was busy with this always. Ki Yaakov masar lo kol chachmato. That Yaakov had given over this wisdom to his son Yosef, ki ikar chochma, because the essence of chochma, hu lachnis hasagot elokot baolam, is to be able to enter into divine perceptions into this world, to draw those perceptions into the world. It's not just to be able to experience them yourself, but the essence, says Rav Natan, is to be able to then draw those perceptions into the world. Lehodia livnei adam givoratav. Like it says that we should make known to the children of man Hashem's gevura, meaning that it's the acknowledgement, it is the revelation of Hashem's gevura in which makes man knowledge. Now, interestingly, the pasuk that he brings here is to make known to man Hashem's gevura. Now, what's the deeper reason for this pasuk that Rav Natan is bringing? The reason is because gevura means contraction. The whole concept of gevura is to contract the light of Hashem. And this contraction, while it seems like a paradox, because the gevura itself hides the light of Hashem, however, it's the contraction of this light which actually allows the light to be revealed. Now, very interestingly, this is getting a little Kabbalistic, but hopefully, just for the sake of understanding, and hopefully to be able to embody this Torah in which we're learning, it's taught in the Zohar that, so to speak, there's this highest level of God consciousness, which is called Atik Yomin. This is the highest spiritual reality, which is called Ancient of Days. Now, if anybody knows as well, where did Rabbi Nachman say all of his stories came from? They came from ancient times. And he used to say that my Torah is very, very ancient, but it's also very new. So everything that he said had tremendous wisdom, had tremendous meaning. And the thing that he was actually hinting to, that his Torah came from ancient days. Like I had a question while I was in New Jersey this past weekend. Thank God. We were trying to spread the light of the Tzaddik, to shine the light of Rabbeinu Zal in Highland Park. And somebody came over to me who's actually been a student of Rabbi Nachman for many years. And he asked me why Rabbi Nachman used to say about his stories that they came from ancient times, even though clearly they came from 200 years ago. And I said the reason is because he was hinting to the fact that the light, the consciousness which imbued these stories, even though they seemed and appeared to be children's stories, which even my son reads at 4 years old, at 3 years old, and there's favorite stories, that actually the source for these stories comes from Atik Yomin. That is the highest place of God consciousness, which will only be revealed in the times of Mashiach. Now, why is it called Atik Yomin, Ancient of Days? Because the Zohar says it's completely inaccessible. There is no way to have a hasaga. There is no way to tangibly experience what's going on in that place. And this is the reason why, Kabbalistically, it's referred to as the unknowable head. Because there is no way to be conscientious of what's going on there, because it's above consciousness. Now, interestingly, there is one time during the year which we are able to connect with this place, according to the Arizal, and that is on the Chag, which is coming up, which is called Purim. I used to say Purim, but then my wife corrects me, and then I say it in a very bad Hebrew Israeli accent. That is Purim, okay? Now, on Purim, we have a mitzvah, the only time of the year that we should get drunk, that we should alter our state of consciousness through some type of external means, so that we, so to speak, go above our consciousness. Now, what's the deep reason for this mitzvah? Now, on the simple level, it's because Chazal taught us that we want to get to the place that we confuse Baruch Mordechai with Arur Haman. That blessed, that Haman, that Mordechai was, so to speak, the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, says the Arizal, and that he was revealing Hashem in the greatest darkness, and that Haman was his antiparticle. He was the opposite version of him, like we just learned that Hashem created one opposite the other. And Haman's whole purpose was to conceal that revelation. Now, Chazal say the mitzvah is to get so drunk that we don't know the difference between the two. That we say that blessed is Haman and cursed is Mordechai. That we flip it. We don't know the difference anymore. Now, interestingly, it's brought by one of the students of Rav Ari Kaplan, who is who was a big student of Rabbi Nachman, who many people believed was a secret Breslover Chassid, and he was trying to Turkey prince everybody and not tell them so that he can continue to, so to speak, relate to all of those outside places that don't necessarily want to hear about Breslov or Rabbi Nachman. And Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's student, his name was Avram Sutton. He wrote many books. I highly suggest and advocate that everybody looks at them. These books are not so well known. There is one in the bookstores called Spiritual Technology, which is amazing. But all of his books are really incredible. They had a huge impact on me. And he has one book, which you might be able to find online. I think it was like from the early 2000s or like the 90s. Very undercover book called Perm, I think the Perm Light or the Hidden Perm Light or something like that. If you look up Avram Sutton. Anyway, he explains there that the gematria of Baruch Mordechai is the same as Arur Haman. That blessed is Mordechai is the same numerical value as cursed is Haman. Meaning, Avram Sutton is teaching that the reason we're supposed to drink on that day is to attain the consciousness of Ani Lo Yodea. I don't know anything. Meaning that what seems to be and appears to be the greatest stira, contradiction to the revelation of godliness, the revelation of good in the world, which is called Haman, is actually part and parcel of his revelation in the world. That he's equal, so to speak, in his blessing to Baruch Mordechai. And in this way, they have the same exact gematria. They have the same numerical value. Now, what's the deeper reason is because when we drink on this day, there's a light that comes in on Purim that doesn't come in the rest of the year, which I'm not going to get too much into it. But this light is actually rooted in Atik Yomin. It's rooted in Ancient of Days, and by getting drunk on that day, you're able to tap into that place. So it's not just the drinking itself. The drinking itself only gets you above your normative consciousness, but then it's the light that actually is drawn into that day that, so to speak, skyrockets you up to being able to see how really, truly everything is for the very best. And there is no difference between the apparent good and the seemingly bad. And this is going to be the revelation of the Mashiach when he comes. Now it's taught in the Zohar that the Gevura of that place that's called Atik Yomin, it is then, so to speak, drawn down and becomes the Chokhmah of the next level. That is called Arach Anpin. This is still on the level of Keter. And in this place, it is revealed not at the level of Gevura, it's revealed at the level of Chokhmah, meaning that the Chokhmah of Arach Anpin is the Gevura of Atik Yomin. And what does that mean simply? That means that the wisdom which comes from the will of Hashem, the wisdom which imbues and gives birth to the will of Hashem, that is the mitzvot, it comes from the Gevura of Atik Yomin. That means the restriction, the concealment of the life at that highest places. That's what gives birth to the mitzvot. So we're learning something very deep. That where is the chokhmah in all the mitzvot? It actually comes from the gevura of the highest madrega, the place that's called the unknowable head. And why am I saying all of this? Because we said just now, the pasuk is lahodia livnei adam, that you should make known to man Hashem's gevura. Now on paper, this would seem to be a contradiction. Why would I want to make known to man Hashem's gevura, his strength? Because his strength on paper is a concealment of him. But we learn even from this very, very brief snapshot into deep Kabbalah, that in fact, it's that concealment that gives birth to the mitzvot. Because the mitzvot, says Rav Natan, and says the Baal Shem Tov, are really all kelim, they're all vessels to experience the light of Hashem. They are the enclothement, the vessels in which we can experience it. Because the light comes from an endless, infinite place, there's no way for a finite person to connect to it. And the 613 mitzvot are actually portals or vessels to be able to have attachment or devekut with Hashem, with that infinite light. And Rav Natan brings from the Baal Shem Tov himself, and Rabbi Nachman says this multiple places in Likutey Moran, that is that the root of the word mitzvah comes from the word saveh, that literally means to attach or to connect, which he says is rooted in the fact of the devekut. Meaning, what are the essence of the mitzvot? That as soon as I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm automatically having a level of devekut, attachment or clinging with the light of the endless one. Now, obviously, When you don't know that, you think you're just doing a stam action. You think I'm just doing a basic action. I don't know why I'm even doing this. And Rav Natan's going to say there that this is the deep secret of mitzvah gerer mitzvah. That Chazal teach, the rabbis teach us that a mitzvah drags along another mitzvah. But the Baal Shem Tov says, what's the explanation of this? Because mitzvah literally means devekut. When I have mitzvah, meaning tzaveh, I'm attached to Hashem, this gorer, this drags along, or this causes or creates more mitzvah, more devekut with Hashem. And where can you do a mitzvah? Anytime, any place, no matter how far you are from Hashem. This is actually the deep reason why Chabad, that one of their main, so to speak, efforts is actually just getting Jews who are very far from Hashem to do mitzvot, even though they don't understand. That they get them to put on tefillin, that they get them to come to their house for Shabbat and wash their hands and make hamotzi, and maybe they don't even know why they're doing it. And people around them would say that doesn't really make any sense. You should get them into yeshiva, get them to learn, and then ultimately they'll do the mitzvot. However, we're learning from the Baal Shem Tov and from the Arizal that the light of the Ein Sof, despite how diminished and how contracted it is, it actually is in the mitzvah itself. So when you do the mitzvah, even though it's so concealed, you are actually attaching yourself to the source of the light of reality, whether you understand it or not. And this is the deep chap for why they do this. And this is also one of the deep reasons why Rabbi Nachman says that it's incumbent upon each Jewish man and woman that we should be learning Shulchan Aruch every single day, that we should be learning halacha every day. Now, you would think that the greatest Hasidic master in history, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, would say that we should be learning Hasidus every day. And yet he teaches us we should be learning Shulchan Aruch every day. We should be learning halacha every day, which seems to be, so to speak, the opposite of Hasidus. It is the driest part of Jewish learning. What does Hashem want me to do? Hashem wants me to do this. However, if we're understanding now that in fact, every mitzvah is really a transfer devekut with Hashem, that you're attaching yourself to the source of the light of Hashem, even though it's contracted so many times over, and that's why you don't feel it necessarily, then in fact, why is Rabbi Nachman teaching us that we need to know the mitzvot? So that every moment we can figure out how we can have devekut with Hashem. And we know that this was the ikar of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings, that the bringing of the geula, the redemption, would come when the Jewish people, no matter how far they are from Hashem, would all figure out how to have devekut with Hashem, how to have connection with and attachment with Hashem, despite their level of learning. And this comes from doing the mitzvot themselves. Yosef ben Sheva Esrei Shana. This is the concept of the pasuk that it said that Yosef was 17 years old. It said he was 17 years old and he was the shepherd, and he would tend the flock with his brothers. So the obvious question is, why do we need to know how old Yosef was? We didn't hear about how old his brothers were, and we actually rarely heard in a person's lifetime how old they were until maybe they passed away. But Yosef, they said how old he was when he was a kid, when he was 17. Why do we need to learn that he was 17 years old and he was shepherding the flock of his brothers? Ro'etzon, zebechinat manhigador. Because the Torah is alluding to us the fact that he is the manhig, he is the shepherd of the whole generation. Shenikra b'chol makom b'shem ro'eh tzon, who in all places is called a shepherd. V'zehu ben sheva esrei shana. And what's the reason for this? Because he was 17 years old. Meaning, sheva esrei begamatria tov. The Rav Natan has a chiddush nifla. That is, that the gematria of 17 is tov, is good. Kamuva, like it says in the Zohar. Hainu, meaning she Yosef hayat tov lakol, meaning that Yosef was good to all. Why are we learning that he was 17 years old? And it's following up by saying something which seemingly is not connected. That is that he was a shepherd for the flocks of his brothers. The answer is that the reason why he was able to be the shepherd of all of his brothers, meaning all of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, is because he was 17, meaning he was tov, he was good. And what is the essence of goodness? That you give it out to everybody. And it's not just for yourself. Like we say about Hashem, that Rabbi Nachman says that who is the first tzaddik Yesod Olam? It's Hashem himself. that we say Hashem is good to all. What does it mean that he's good to all? Meaning no matter where you're at, no matter where you're holding, no matter what you're doing, Hashem is still good to you. He's still trying to help you no matter where you are. And the Tzaddik Yesod Olam, meaning Yosef, he is the human embodiment of this. And for this reason that he's good to everybody. Therefore, Hashem makes him the shepherd of all the Jewish people. V'haya kulo tov. Because Rav Natan says that Yosef was only good. What was the reason that he was able to be good to everybody? That he was able to help those people who were furthest, that he cared to even help those people who were far off. Whereas his brothers, even though they were also tzaddikim, they did not care to help those people who were furthest. They didn't even think that that was what Hashem wanted. Why was Yosef the only one who was able to have this apprehension that this is what Hashem wanted? And the reason is very deep, says Rav Natan. Because Yosef was kulo tov. The reason why it said that Yosef was 17, meaning he was always 17, he was always tov, that there was only kulo tov about him. He had nothing bad within him at all. And because he was kulo tov, all he saw was good in his brothers. And therefore, when you see that in truth that the ikr of everybody is good, now you can go help them. Now you desire to help them. And therefore, through this, he was able to bring back everybody. Because he found even in the worst of the worst good points. And through this karvam Hashem Yiparach, he was able to bring everybody back to Hashem Yiparach. There's a comment on the bottom of him. Yosef made the Egyptians do the Brit Milah. Yes, this is actually the secret of that. The Egyptians, so to speak, represented those people who were furthest from Hashem. And the Brit Milah means the bringing into, so to speak, the wings of the Shekhinah, that he drew them back into the light of Hashem. That is represented by the Brit Milah. So this is an amazing thing. The next thing that it says about Yosef at Tzaddik is that he was a youth. And who was he a youth with? The children of Bilhah and Zilpah. So the question is, why do we need to know who Yosef was hanging out with? We're not trying to keep up with the Kardashians over here. Why do we need to know the social order of Yosef? Why do we have to know that despite the fact that he was brothers to Yaakov's main wives, that was Rachel and Leah, and those children that were Yehuda, and we have Reuven and Shimon and Levi, Yisachar, Zavulun, Benjamin. And yet, who was Yosef hanging out with? Yosef was not hanging out with them. Yosef was hanging out with Bilhah and Zilpah's children. That is Gad and Dan, Naphtali and Asher, who were not the main wives of Yaakov. They were actually, according to some opinions, slaves that were married by Yaakov, because in order to build the families of Rachel and Leah, that they should have more children through them. So why is Yosef, who, so to speak, had achieved the highest level, hanging out with the slave maidservants' children and not with the main wives' children? Hinting to the fact that the Sitra Achra and Satan had the tight grip on those people, meaning that the whole concept of these children being the children of Bilhah and Zilpah means that they were under the jurisdiction, that they were, so to speak, submerged under the forces of darkness in the world. Where is this hinted to by the fact that they were the children of Bilhah and Zilpah? Because Rav Natan says this is the Bechinat in the Pasuk that says, Balachot et nech. I will make you into Balachot. Which Rashi says Balahot is connected to the word Rashi says Shadim or demons. That is the negative forces in the world. We see that the name Bilhah itself comes from the word shade or a demon. These were the children of those people. What does that mean? It means that they were under the forces, that they were being held down from those very dark forces that came from Bilhah. Rashi says shadim, like we just said. Hainu, meaning chelot yetzahara, meaning that the yetzahara was strongest with those people. What halakha are we teaching from? This is halakha dalit Tet Zion. So that's 4:16. I think they call that a colon or a semicolon. I forget. I haven't been to school in a few years. Okay. So now it says like this. Shehem Shedim Uklipot, meaning that they were under the weight of the klipot. Shehem Mevahalim Umabalim Umarshayim Et Adam, meaning that they were confused and they were confounded. And on paper, they looked like the Rishaim. But in fact, the whole reason was because the Sitra Achra was stronger on them. And this is also the concept of the children of Zilpa. Like it says in Tehillim, Zalafa ahazanti merashaim, which means that Zalafa has gripped me on account of the Rashaim. Meaning what? Again, the same thing. Ki cheilot yetzahara hem bechinat balahot v'zalafot. That the word Zilpa comes from the same root word as also Shedim, or the Yetzahara, or the forces of darkness in the world. And all those who were drawn after them are called B'nai Bilha and B'nai Zilpa, meaning those people who are not connected to Hashem, those people who may even be opposed to Judaism, may be opposed to the mitzvot, may be opposed to learning Torah. Those are called B'nai Zilpa, B'nai Bilha, and these are who Yosef Tzaddik was busy hanging out with. V'Tzaddik HaGadol, and the great Tzaddik, Bechina Yosef, the concept of Yosef, Osek Imam, he's busy with them. Umerid et atzmo alehem, klei lekravam l'Hashem yitbarach. He lowers himself to make them feel that he's with them, and in doing so, in order to draw them back to Hashem. V'zehu v'na'ar, and this is the concept of the pasuk, v'hu na'ar et b'nei vilha v'nei bezel zipa. Why was he an adolescent or a child? Why did he act like a child when he was with them? Perush Rashi, Shaya, what does Rashi explain? Shaya oseh ma'aseh na'arut. That is, that he acted like a child. He did actions like an immature child. Why was he acting like an immature child despite the fact that he had reached the highest level of actual maturity? Because the true tzaddik, because the true tzaddik, in his strength of his wisdom, his highest level of understanding, he actually decides to descend and to lower himself to be with those people who are furthest. Until it appears to them that he was acting in a way of na'arut, childishly. That he speaks with them about secular matters that seemingly have nothing to do with spirituality. And he's eating with them and he's drinking with them. And at times he's even playing with them. He's taking walks with them. He's playing games with them, as we know that Rabbi Nachman was known to do with those people who were very far from Hashem. And his entire intention today is in order to it's only in order to draw them all back to Hashem Yiparach. Like it says Chazal v'chama mekomot in many different places. Chama v'chama tzaddik morid et atzmo el olam, that the tzaddik, he lowers himself to engage with the world. Shekolze, that all of this nechshav etzlo, it's compared to him maase narut, like he's acting childishly. Aval kavanato, however, what is his intention? Ritzuya l'Hashem yiparach levad. His intention is only to please Hashem yiparach. Bishvil l'karev urechokim me'od l'Hashem yiparach, to bring back those who are furthest. She'iyav shar, it's impossible l'karvam, to bring them back, ki im ayadeza, except through this. Through lowering himself and making himself appear as if he is childish, as if he does not really understand, so to speak, what is going on. And in fact, he understands even more so, just like Yosef. And this is the real deep reason why, who does Rabbi Nachman appeal to the most on paper, at least initially? To the sons of Bilha and Zilpa. That you see that the people who go to Uman are not the people you see in yeshiva on Main Street. Why are they in Uman? Because Rabbi Nachman appears to them to be just like them. He is dressing up and lowering himself to spend time with those people like us who are furthest in order to bring us back to Hashem. And that's why it says that he was an adolescent. He was a child with the children of Bilhah and Zilpah. And this is, at least superficially, one of the biggest reasons why Rabbi Nachman experiences the greatest amount of opposition, and his students as well, because you see that a lot of his students, at times of the days, instead of pretending to learn and literally just talking to their friends for hours, they're outside screaming in the fields, or they're dancing and they're listening to music, or they're going out to eat with people who are very far from Hashem, and they're hanging out with them and talking to them and making nice. So the question is, why are they busy with this? If their leader, their rabbi, their teacher is such a great tzaddik, they should just be learning all day. However, Rabbi Nachman says there is no way to know the essence of a real tzaddik. However, you're able to gain a faint impression from his students. So what are his students doing? They're embodying their bechina of Yosef himself. That they themselves, so to speak, look and act childishly. And it's really all a gigantic ploy in order to bring back all of the Jewish people who are so far from Hashem. That he lowers himself in his great humility because he doesn't care about his reputation. He doesn't care what he looks like. He doesn't even care what his brothers think about him, because he understands that at the end of the day, Hashem loves all of his children equally and he wants all of them back. But it's his great wisdom itself that actually allows him to get to that place of understanding that the highest thing that a person can do is not just to gain wisdom, but to be able to actually draw that wisdom down to all those people who are furthest. This is an amazing lesson, by the way. This is this is one of my favorite pieces of Likutey Halachot. It continues again, Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow. Do we have any questions from today's lesson?
Boker Tov.
Boker Tov, how you doing?
Pretty good. I had a question based on something that you just said about doing the mitzvot and how the light of the Ein Sof is encapsulated in doing the mitzvot. With the goyim, with those who accept the Noahide law, do they receive a part of Hashem when they do those 7 Noahide laws?
Yes.
Do they receive a piece of it too?
Yes. You want to know the proof?
Yes.
Something unbelievable. Mamish, thank you, Hashem. It just plopped in my head. We just said that how are we able, so to speak, through the mitzvot to receive that light of Hashem, the light of the Ein Sof? So we're saying it's through the mitzvot. So we have the 613 mitzvot for Jewish people, and we have the 7 for non-Jews. So that's 620. Where is the light of the Ein Sof revealed? It's in the highest sphere that's called the highest spiritual reality, which we know is called the Keter of Hashem, the crown of Hashem. What is the gematria of Keter? 620. Which is to show that all of the 620 mitzvot are rooted in the light of the Keter. So all of these mitzvot are encapsulations. They are vehicles or portals through which to receive the light of Hashem, even for the non-Jewish people, because those 7 mitzvot are also coming from Keter.
Heavy.
Hashem is good to all. Okay. Any other questions?
Rabbi, quick question. We say we follow Hillel right now because of the great light and going up in the light. But Mashiach is going to come. We're going to follow Shamayim.
No.
Judgment.
No. That's after the Geula.
After Mashiach.
After Mashiach.
Yeah, that after Mashiach we're going to follow Shamayim.
Right, but that is after already the process of change has stopped. Meaning, once there's complete Geula through the way of Hillel, meaning the Geula of Mashiach will be like Hillel, not like Shammai. And then ultimately through that Geula and everybody now knowing the truth, then we're going to start following Shammai. But we will want to do that naturally because we're no longer going to have to, so to speak, cater or help those who are furthest, because there will be no such thing as people who are furthest.
So that means we're not going to have free will.
No. You excited?
I want it now.
You want it now? Okay, so we got to do everything that we can to get these teachings as far and as wide as possible, and specifically to those people who are least connected. By the way, this is a good time for me to say, even though you guys know that this makes me sick to my stomach, but for the sake of Hashem, for the sake of Rabbi Nachman, for the sake of the Jewish people, if anybody wants to help us accomplish this, please, we need resources to be able to do these classes. We need resources to be able to travel and to bring this light to others. We need resources to be able to use technology to get this out to people who are further. Okay, please donate to us. Go on our website at tzionbreslov.org or Gmail us at tzionbreslovproject@gmail.com to be able to see how to be able to help us in this mission or to bring others to help us in this mission. We're hoping to do a fundraiser soon as well. So please, I hope that you're all able to help. And mamash, I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, this is in your zchut. So see, somebody said, Rabbi, come to Breslov, Toronto. So I'm telling you right now, I promise you, Bezrat Hashem, with Hashem's help, if we have enough money for Tzion, I will definitely come there. Because as anybody knows, I literally went and I traveled across the country to go to Chicago to speak to 3 people. I don't care, but I need to be able to afford the plane ride. So, so please, anybody who you know who can help our cause. I think right now on the website, since we're revamping the website with, thank God, the money that has been given to us, we're trying to use it to revamp the website. So in the process, I think the donation page there might not be working properly, but please don't let that stop you. Please email us at tzionbreslovproject@gmail.com and ask how you can help, okay? And I promise you as well, this is the highest level of tzedakah by any means imaginable. And Rabbi Nachman says in many places in the Likutey Moharan that the ikar of tzedakah is to open up, so to speak, a channel in which you can receive godliness in a much higher way than if not for tzedakah. There's many depths to that. Bezrat Hashem, when we get to that lesson in the Likutey Moharan, we'll talk about it. Any other questions here? It says that's why Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to take out Erev Rav. That's right. That is true. Okay. Someone said you should go to hospitals and to work with people who deal with addiction. This is also something I want to do. Okay. For this, I also need resources. Okay. So please tell everybody. Rabbi Nachman says in Likutey Moharan, for the greatest revelation of Torah, you need the greatest revelation of Parnasa. That wealth is very connected to Torah. This is why it says in Pirkei Avot, Ein Kemach, Ein Torah. Okay? Everybody needs Rabbi Nachman. But for sure, the ikar is for sure to try and get to those places that are furthest. And my dream is really to go to those places. When I was in Miami, thank God, Gedalia Fenster invited me to actually come to his substance abuse clinic and to speak there. It was amazing. It was really, really amazing. A lot of the people there, Jewish, not Jewish, were coming up to me after. They were writing down. They're like, who's that person? Rabbi Nachman. They wrote his name down. They looked him up after. They got my phone number. They wanted to speak to me about different things with Rabbi Nachman. They're looking up his Torah now. You know, this is mamash, the living revelation of Rabbi Nachman's greatest dream, which is really Hashem's greatest dream. And that is to take this light and to lower it into those places for those people who are struggling the most. And this is for sure what Tzion wants to do. We deeply, deeply want to get to those places. And also from people need Rabbi Nachman as well. Everybody needs Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman says the whole ikar of the Tzaddik Emet is that he helps those people who are furthest to realize that they're actually very close. And he helps those who are very close to realize that they're actually very far. This is the koach of Rabbi Nachman. So for sure, everybody needs him. Okay? Any other questions? Last chance. Don't be shy. You can even write them on the bottom. Oh! Ellie! What's going on? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
So unmute me, you admin.
Don't call me bad words in front of everybody.
You're right. You're right. Come on, give us some chizuk today. Some chizuk.
You hear this lesson?
Not just sitra achara.
Oh my gosh, you didn't hear the lesson. This is the greatest.
I did. It's above my my brain capacity.
Listen to me. The ikar of Rabbi Nachman's teachings is to show you that no matter where you are, no matter how low you go, who's with you? No matter where you are, who's with you? Who's with you? Huh?
You.
The force.
No, not me. I would love to be, but who's with you everywhere you go?
How what?
How what? Come on, you're making me look bad in front of all my students.
Hashem.
Hashem, good. Why? Where is Hashem? Like, show him. Where else? And where else is he?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Oh my gosh. See, my 4-year-old knows it. So thank God. Ellie, it's time to go back into your childlike state, not to think so much about what's going on in your life.
And just go.
To be very simple. Very, very simple. That the highest level is to be like a child with Hashem. Be like a child.
Is that why Yosef was called a child? Because he thought the way Shiloh did? Hashem is here.
Everywhere,
Also.
including
Might
that
not
crumb on
choose.
your beard. Yes, he's even hidden in that crumb.
It's not a crumb, that's nacho cheese.
What? Say that again? My son wants to know some of the gossip, some of the scoop. Why is Benjamin Roberts hanging out with Ellie Singer? Can you give Ellie the microphone and explain himself?
I'm here right here. So I woke up this morning and I had this chus of someone on my living room floor. And I told him he could stay here, and he's been here ever since. So we're taking care of him and making sure that he's spiritually uplifted all the time.
Very nice, Ellie. We're going to give you a sticker at the end of the month that you have 30 days clean with Rebbe Nachman, okay? Thank you for talking to everybody here. We really appreciate it.
Are we live? Hold on.
We're definitely live and recorded. Don't worry, people all over the world will see your face, Ellie. So this is the thing. You need to know Hashem is with you everywhere. And if you want to know what that means, go get the book Hashem is Everywhere for Little Children. You will get tremendous chizuk from seeing exactly where he is. Is he in space? Yes, he's in outer space. Is he in the ground? Yes, he's also in the ground. But is he really every place? Yes, he's every place. He's even in outer space. Yeah.
But he's concealed.
But the only way to know that Hashem is with you is to speak to him. There is no way to be able to know that Hashem is with you except to speak to him. And what's the reason? Because it's taught in Kabbalah that the Shekhinah comes out of a Jew's mouth. So as long as you're not speaking to him, meaning the Shekhinah is not coming out of your mouth, you don't see the Shekhinah. But as soon as you talk to Hashem, you automatically feel Hashem in your life because the Shekhinah is what's coming out of your mouth. You need to speak to the Ribono Shalom. With this, you will get close to Hashem. And if you say, oh gosh, I'd love to, but I really need some chizuk, and I really need to want to know that Hashem's there first. So the answer is you can't. This is the whole point. You need to talk to Hashem every single day. By talking to Hashem every day, you will never forget that Hashem is there. You will experience him. It will put your priorities straight in order. If you connect to those people close to you who are good influences, who are students of Rebbe Nachman, who are trying to bring this to others at the exclusion of all else, you yourself will be attached to this light to the extent that it won't be every day, is Hashem really there? I don't know. Is he helping me? X, Y, and Z? I don't know. That whole thing is a part of the process. It's very normal. But if you want to, so to speak, fast forward and accelerate your progress, you need to, so to speak, access the, what was it called? The early Ellie days, like when the athletes, when they go back to the 80s. So you got to go back to that original state that you were on fire, that you didn't know Rebbe Nachman, and you didn't, and he bowed a dude in the field, and you were throwing yourself in Hashem completely, and you were learning Rebbe Nachman's Torah every chance that you got, and you were hanging out with those people who also were doing the same. So you go up, you go down, that's all part of the process. And now every descent is for the sake of Aliyah. So tonight we have Likutey Moran at Od Yosef Chai.
With my 7 easy step program of $39.99 a month.
Which is completely free. We don't charge anybody to learn. And that's
How
the reason
about-
why we need
I wanna be on
donations.
your lap.
So if you come tonight, Bezrat Hashem, you're going to learn how to be besimcha
I
and
wanna
to
be
see
on your
Hashem
lap.
in your life. Okay, everybody, whoever else is on here, tonight, 9 p.m., Od Yosef Chai.
Be there or be square.
Yes, and if you're not there physically, you can watch online.
Virtual.
Everybody have an amazing, amazing day.
I want to do it.
Yom
Can I
Tov.
do it?
Go ahead, Tzaddik. You can end it. Press end meeting for all. Press that. Go ahead.